Hello, Doctor Who fans across the world, and welcome to another Who Corner to Corner podcast. My name is Paul, and as always, I am joined by my very good Doctor Who-based chum, Mr. Geoff from the far side of the world. How are you today, Geoff?
Paul, I'm going to stop you there because we've got breaking news to interrupt the start of tonight's episode.
What is that news?
The breaking news is that the 15th Doctor's costume has been revealed on Twitter today in advance of their first bit of filming taking place tonight, I believe.
Holy moly!
Ooh, that's exciting.
I'm sure our listeners, by the time they listen to this, they'll have seen the costume, of Ncuti's costume, and he's wearing, let me describe it for you. He's wearing a long, knee-length brown coat, I guess you'd call it.
I'm looking at it right now.
He's wearing a pair of ankle-length brown trousers, and he's wearing a pair of brown shoes, and he's wearing a slightly fluffy-looking orange jumper, possibly made from Muppet skin. I don't know what it's made. What it is.
I thought it was a t-shirt at first, but no.
No, I think it looks thicker.
Some kind of cool fabric.
Yeah. So he looks very sharp and very stylish, I think.
Very sharp.
But I don't dislike it at all. I like it. I think it suits. I think it
incoming.
It suits Ncuti because he's quite.
Everybody duck. Go on.
Ncuti seems to be quite, fashionable, and he does. He's modelled for different brands and stuff.
He can wear anything, and it would look good. Yeah. He's just one of those guys, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. So it really kind of fits him, and it's quite. It's not very flamboyant. For some reason I thought it might have been, but it's not. But I feel like I'm getting a bit of 10th Doctor vibes from it.
Because long coat?
Well, long coat, and it's brown. So,
maybe.
But like you commented, it's like Troughton trousers or like
Troughton. Yeah, I mean that's
style.
very doctorish.
Yeah,
that is a very, very doctorish outfit. To me, I see more Tom Baker actually than David Tennant in that.
I think it's literally because it's a long. I mean, it's not as long as Tennant's, but it's a long brown jacket and brown trousers.
Yeah,
if it had been
Doctor always has long coats. Jodie had a long coat.
Yeah, she did, but it was like sky.
Fourth Doctor had a long coat.
Sky coloured,
yeah, but it's still a long coat.
Yeah, but if this wasn't brown, I wouldn't have that immediate thought of it. But
Hartnell had a not quite so long coat.
No,
Troughton.
But then it's interesting. You said it looks very doctorish. Should because some people said Jodie's costume wasn't very doctorish, and should a doctor be doctorish? Should it all be a mixture of bow ties and cravats and waistcoats and long coats and all of that? I think that was probably one of the things I liked so much about Jodie's costume, that it was so different and very befitting for her, and I do think this is befitting for Ncuti. I think it really kind of fits him in himself, and I think it's really important that the actors have input into the outfit and feel comfortable in it. Like if anyone had ever seen the Matt Smith costume test pictures where he looks like an emo pirate in one of them, and he looks basically like Sherlock in another one, and they obviously went through with Ray Holman, they went through a whole load of different things, but until Matt said, well, what about a bow tie, and maybe what about the braces or something, and he kind of really had a bit of input in, and obviously Jodie was very collaborative with Ray for her costume, and I imagine Ncuti was here. So that's when I say like it's very him, that I really like that.
Right.
So I don't dislike it at all. I suppose I would have liked a different colour in the suit, but maybe we'll get that the way Tennant changed into a blue suit at points. But yeah, go back to the, should a doctor fill the stereotypes of what the wider audience think of a doctor, a long scarf and a floppy hat? I'm not sure. I don't know.
I mean, the doctor, you look at all the doctors, they're all quite different, really. There are similarities across. There does tend to be a coat. Usually it's a long one, but Sylvester McCoy didn't wear a very long coat. He had quite a short jacket. Peter Davison had a long cricketer's coat. See, now Jodie's outfit reminds me a lot of the Fifth Doctor's outfit. Actually,
Yeah.
you know, it's a similar kind of colour scheme.
Yes, yeah.
Stripes, you know, various little details. I noticed Ncuti's coat has also got some wide lapels, which is always good for any Doctor to have, so they can put little badges and things upon it. He's got a whole bunch of rings. That's not very Doctorish. If you want to go down that's
no,
a new
it's
thing.
not. No, and
Jodie had some ear jewellery, perhaps. So we have seen more jewellery on the Doctor.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I do think that it's nice to kind of homage, you know, what's been before, but also forge something new and establish, you know, a Doctor's own, you know, identity. Like, and that's what I'm saying. I don't think that we need, you know, waistcoats and, you know. Do you know what I mean? I think for some reason there's certain sort of imagery that you know people kind of like. I suppose it's like if you've got a favourite Doctor and you like their outfit, you know they are your definition of the Doctor, and you want other.
Very possibly.
Do you know what I mean? Like
there could be something in that.
Yeah. You know, but
which I suppose actually, when you go back to Chris Eccleston, I mean, his was probably the least quotation fingers Doctorish of them all. Leather bomber jacket, plain T-shirt, you know, bother boots and Doc Martin boots, weren't they? Pretty much. And,
it was real
sort of
simple
jeans.
and stripped back. And,
very simple,
you know,
very stripped back.
Probably worked quite well, both for the character and also. You know, the show coming back to not be sort of too kind of out there, you know, with what they were wearing initially.
I mean, it's not a Sixth Doctor outfit, is it? It's not that kind of flamboyance. It is, in some ways, quite conservative, I feel. It is a very restricted colour palette.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the jumper he's wearing is quite a nice sort of peachy orange colour.
Yeah.
Which is quite unusual. Not many people can pull that off. I'm not sure I can pull that one off, but he does it.
Yeah,
he can literally wear anything.
Yeah, and I
he can have a pair of Y fronts on his head, and they'd still look great.
Well, I saw him in the Barbie trailer in some sort of gym type thing, and he looked quite cool in that, you know. So anyway, yeah, it looks good, and I do quite like a long, you know, lengthy jacket. In fact, it was from the Matrix sequels where they were working on Keanu's costume, and he said he didn't want to have a cape per se, but by having the long sort of overcoat thing that's done up to the waist and then flares out when he flies, it gives a sort of cape type feel to it, you know.
There's a dynamism to it, isn't it? When they're twirling around in slow mo with all their guns blazing and shells clattering to the floor by the dozen.
And like, you know, Jodie running in her long coat and stuff. So, you know, shooting with that when it you know is flapping around as he's running is going to look quite cool.
Third Doctor with his actual cape, even.
Yeah, well, he did have an actual cape. Yeah.
Actually, it does look a bit like it. You know, when you look at the Third Doctor's outfit in the Five Doctors. There's a lot of similarities there, actually. I can see that in the 15th Doctor's outfit. It's kind of like a sort of tartan-ish pattern, isn't it? On
yes,
the
it is.
Sort of check pattern on the trousers and the coats.
And what's interesting as well, actually, is that the 14th Doctor is wearing tartan-y checked
he is, yes, again, Troughton's trousers.
Yeah. So I wonder whether there's a sort of through line there or something.
The spirit of Troughton has pervaded all subsequent Doctors in some form or another. In fact, even the Master in The Power of the Doctor was wearing Troughton-esque trousers. Yeah. Actually, a whole Troughton outfit, I think, pretty much, bar the bow tie. I don't think I saw a bow tie.
No, no bow tie. No,
he had the jacket and the trousers. That's for sure.
But anyway, back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Yes.
Which is in no way a last-minute
absolutely
arrangement.
Not. We plan all these things well in advance
because our other stuff had to be rescheduled this week. So,
see, I wasn't going to tell anybody that. They didn't need to know. They would never have
Please
known.
Enjoy this Weeks in the Planning episode of Who Corner to Corner. So what we're going to do?
I despair.
What we're going to do tonight is have a bit of a chat about Big Finish stories.
Yes, we are. I'm looking forward to it.
Throw out some of our favourites that we like. I think we'll go through Doctor by Doctor, perhaps. And
you have to do that. Okay, let's do that.
Oh no, we don't have to do it that way.
No, let's do that. Let's do it. I'm up for a challenge.
Okay,
you know me.
And we don't need to kind of go into huge depth on each one because there's so many to talk about. But we can kind of briefly, talk about them, and we've got some stuff from our listeners as well that they like, which we'll come to at the end, I think. So
it's a Big Finish celebration.
We need to
do jingles.
Yes.
We should do more jingles on our podcast. Listeners, if you want jingles from us, just let us know.
Yeah,
send us little clips so we can use them. I'm trying to think of ways that we can kind of jazz things up a bit.
Yeah.
We're going into 2023 soon, 2023. I mean, that's like ages in the future.
How long we've been doing
So we
this?
need to kind of rejuvenate something.
Yeah.
I think we should do jingles.
That's an idea. But let us know maybe if you want like a weekly news type thing or something, or
Mr. Sandman.
We could have a different title piece for episode reviews or recaps or guests or something. So let us know. We're going to leave it up to you to tell us, and this will be a test to see if anyone actually listens, and if they tweet back on this. So before we get into actually let's start on the Doctors, because I was going to talk about one of the spin-off series. Let's go. Dr. Uno. So
Doctor One.
I don't. Oh no, that's not true. I have listened to some First Doctor stuff. So
what have you listened to?
I need to remember the name of it. So why don't you go first?
Well, to be fair, actually, I have talked about this quite a bit in the last few episodes where we've referenced this.
Yeah.
I do like the First Doctor Adventures, and I was very pleased to see on my little pop up on my phone when I was scouring through the halls of social media that another box set is due out in February, starring Stephen Noonan as the First Doctor and our good friend Lauren Cornelius as Dodo Chaplet. So I'm really looking forward to that. And the first box set, I mean, I was so surprised and delighted to hear Stephen Noonan playing the First Doctor. I'd never heard of him before.
No.
But when his voice came in as a kind of a very... It's difficult to describe. If you haven't heard it, go out and listen to it, because it is so like the First Doctor and yet so not like the First Doctor. It's kind of unreal. It's very good. But it takes a bit of listening to. It takes a little bit of getting used to. It's like, I mean, I think he's got it, to be honest. I think he really has got the First Doctor encapsulated in a way that no other actor playing the First Doctor has since William Hartnell. He's got it. He's got there's a delivery that Hartnell does that Stephen Noonan has sort of taken and kind of evolved and made it his own in a way. But its foundation is definitely Hartnell. When I was growing up and I heard about the First Doctor, it was always, the one line description of the First Doctor is he was a crotchety old man.
Yeah.
And we've had Richard Herndl in the Five Doctors, who I think was very good, but he gave us a kind of a First Doctor with a twinkle in his eye, a little bit of a gruffness. It was nothing like Hartnell, really, but I didn't mind that when I first watched it, because I don't think I'd seen any Hartnell episodes at that point. And then, of course, more recently we've had David Bradley, who's given us his own spin on the First Doctor.
He's sort
and
of the,
really it's
he's like the TV version now, isn't he?
He is, yeah, and he's very good as well. I do enjoy his First Doctor, in Adventures in Space and Time and Twice Upon a Time. But Stephen Noonan has absolutely got it, and I will actually pay money to listen to him again. I have to, because Big Finish don't deliver this stuff for free.
I don't believe they do review copies.
So they've got me signed up for the second First Doctor Adventures box set, and of course Lauren's on it, and we she's become a great friend of ours, has she not, Geoff?
Yep, she has.
Since we invited her onto our podcast.
Yes, she was wonderful and lovely, and she came along and presented the video for my Horsham Film Festival recently.
Indeed, she did, and she's brilliant.
She was great. So I've not listened to the Stephen First Doctor set yet. I was particularly interested in one of the stories in the new set that's coming out, which I think is called The Demons or something like that. And it sounds like a spooky Who, which
you do like the spooky ones,
like
don't
the
you?
spooky Who, yeah.
I'm going to be surprised if you don't reference any spooky tales tonight.
Well, I did think I was thinking about it earlier. I thought I always bang on about the spooky ones, so maybe I won't do that tonight. But we'll see. I have listened to the first of the first Doctor Adventures with David Bradley doing it, which has got the cast from An Adventure in Time and Space playing Ian and Barbara and everyone. So the two stories there's one called The Destination Wars, where the Doctor takes everyone to it's described on the Big Finish as a gleaming utopia in the space year 2003, and has the Doctor brought Ian and Barbara home to glimpse their future, and then they find out that there's a sort of, it's all been overlorded by a mysterious benefactor, and they sort of investigate that, and that was good. And then there's one called The Great White Hurricane, where they get stuck between sort of gang wars and a big blizzard. Hurricane comes in. I think it's based on an actual event in history. I can't remember where, but it was good.
Right.
I didn't kind of investigate any further on them after that, really. So it was good. I enjoyed it, but that was as far as that went for me, really.
That was it,
that was it, yeah. So let's move on to the second Doctor. This I might as well just say this now. I'll just move straight on to the third Doctor.
Well, do you know, I have got. Hold on. Where did I put it? Yeah. I do have the second Doctor Adventures box set, which
that's a new one, isn't it?
Yeah. So this is Beyond War Games, featuring, I'm reading this out now, John Culshaw, Katie Manning, and Tim Trello with Nicholas Briggs as the Daleks. I mean, I'm surprised Nicholas Briggs is playing the Daleks. He's not very good at it.
No,
I don't know
that's
why
a new one to me. Brave man. Yeah.
We've got two stories in here. One is The Final Beginning with Mark Wright, by Mark Wright and Nicholas Briggs, and the second one is Wrath of the Ice Warriors by Andrew Smith. Ooh, I should look forward to that. Andrew Smith wrote Full Circle, which is a season 18 Doctor Who story for Tom Baker and Lala Ward as Romana. It was a story that introduced Adric, the young snapper that he is. And when he wrote that, I believe Andrew was only 17 years old.
Oh, really?
Listeners, it was a young whippersnapper, and now he's an old man now. But I think he's just a couple of years older than me, actually, to be honest. Or maybe a few more, actually. If he was 17 in 79, 80, quite a few more years older than me. But it's great. I mean, I loved Andrew's. Andrew's written quite a few big finishes as well. I can't quite recall their titles straight off, so do forgive me. I'm sure people will let us know. But I do like his writing. Full Circle itself feels very kind of fresh, and it's got a sort of dynamism to it that just kind of lifts that season, after that point. So I'm looking forward to this one, and of course. It's going to be interesting. Actually, I haven't listened to it yet, so I will probably at some point over Christmas.
Good. I haven't listened to any of the second Doctor stuff, which is a shame because I really love his Doctor on screen, and obviously it's other people playing him on audio. But
that's quite a weird thing. I don't know how I think. Certain people, we all may feel slightly different on this, possibly. Initially, I was a little bit kind of distrustful, I suppose. I mean, I guess because we'd had Richard Herndl and David Bradley playing the first Doctor, doing a good old job of it, not trying to be Hartnell, but trying to be the character, but in their own sort of way. I kind of like that. With Troughton, I don't think we've ever really seen. We had Rhys Shearsmith playing briefly in Adventures in Space and Time, the 50th anniversary episode, which I don't think he kind of looked or sounded right for at all.
And it
was so brief anyway.
Yeah, it was brief, wasn't it?
I could kind of forget it. It sort of doesn't matter really. And actually, it's almost like at the end of that, it's almost like the imposter coming in to take over the TARDIS when the original Doctor is kind of just having a little tinker with it one last time. It's quite heartfelt, that. So that's an irony there, isn't there?
Yes, there is. So
moving on
talking of actors playing past Doctors. They've had Tim Treloar playing the third Doctor for quite a while now, and Tim, possibly a bit like you was just sort of mentioning there, he's not doing like a 100% impersonation of Pertwee's Doctor, but he's kind of filtering it through himself. But it's very good, and there's times listening to it where you could be convinced that it's Pertwee, and then there's other times where you're like, that's not. It's not that it's wrong. It's just it's slightly different, and it's a little bit like what's he called, Jacob Dudman, who's done the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th Doctors in what they call the Chronicles series, which is stories with those Doctors where it's not the Doctor playing their part. So, like, Dudman does a really good Capaldi, and his Tennant was really good, like 90% of the time. He is very good.
Annoyingly good.
It's
depressingly good.
When he is slightly off, you can kind of forgive it because you know that it's not supposed to be.
But that's the thing. When he's not actually off all that often.
No, exactly.
Like,
no, that's
99% of the time, he's absolutely bang on point.
I remember listening to his
Capaldi's. It's just incredible.
Yeah, where he did
the fact he can act as well in voice acts and everything.
Yeah, he's really good. Because he did
Bastard.
the time jacked.
I mean that in a nice way,
yes,
obviously.
Yeah, if you're listening, Jacob. Yeah, he did the time jacked story with Bav Palmer that we've spoken to, and when I was listening to that, sometimes I was just sort of thinking, it's Capaldi, and I'd kind of
I know you just go with it,
completely forget. Yeah,
totally
but going back to the third Doctor, story. So I've listened to the first set of those, which was Tim Treloar and Katie Manning with Richard Franklin, in two stories called Prisoners of the Lake and The Havoc of Empires, and they were both good. Prisoners of the Lake was about disappearing artefacts from an archaeological site deep underwater, deep under a lake, and The Havoc of Empires was a sort of futuristic space station. There was a diplomatic crisis going on, and it was a long time ago I listened to that one, so I can't remember it brilliantly. And then in the second set, which was Tim and Katie again, and this was Transcendence of Ephros and the Hidden Realm, and they were both very good as well, but that's a pretty vague review. But I particularly liked the third Doctor, Volume 8 it was. So this was Tim and Katie Manning in one story, and then Sadie Miller in another story, who is obviously
Elizabeth
Sladen's daughter, and it must be strange for her to sort of be playing her mum's part like that, but she does it really well, and it's actually,
I haven't heard that.
It's quite nice that it's her, and there's something quite sort of charming about the fact that it's in her performance, but it's her, it's Liz's daughter playing her her part. So this was
there's a nice symmetry to that.
Yes, so this first story, Conspiracy in Space, was the Doctor with Joe, and they get sort of caught up in a sort of intergalactic war type thing, and then the second one, which is part of the reason I bought this set. This is the one with Sarah Jane. This is based on the Devil's Hoofprints legend.
The Devil's Hoofprints.
Do you know that story?
No.
Paul remains silent. So
no, I said no. I said.
Oh yeah,
I just said it very quietly, so as not to embarrass myself.
Well, it's not probably that widely well known, but in 1855 there was a very heavy snowfall wherever it was, up in somewhere in England. And the next morning, when people woke up, there was hoof prints all through the snow and jumping over fences and up on roofs and all this sort of thing across the fields. And I think it happened for 2 or 3 nights, and people couldn't there was no explanation of where they came from, where they went. There was no other footprints with them or anything.
Did nobody stay up overnight to kind of watch it and try and figure?
Well, they were terrified back then. They thought it was
stay indoors with the curtains closed.
Yeah. They thought it was a devil out for a stroll.
I'm not going out there, figure.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I don't like the smell of it. That's Satan's work out there, that is. I ain't going nowhere near that for sure. Call blammy.
You sound just like someone in the episode that we're talking about. So
I'm a lot cheaper than them, probably.
So obviously, being a Doctor Who story taking inspiration from a true life adventure, it isn't what you sort of initially thought it might have been, and it was a very good one as well. It ended up being quite,
interesting.
Not what you were sort of expecting at all, really. Actually,
yeah.
So that was a good one.
I've only listened to one Third Doctor adventure, I guess, which is on the Legacy of Time box set.
Yes, yeah.
Which I have here, and my limited edition number is 3,178 of 4,000. So I'm very, very proud to own that unique edition. But the Sacrifice of Joe Grant, I think, is the Third Doctor entry in that. There's one from quite a few Doctors, and
that's
it was
a really good one.
It was very good. To be honest, actually, I can't remember a huge amount about the story. I think I was driving when I was listening to it, but I actually felt quite emotional.
Yes,
and I think it was. It was Katie Manning's performance in that, and her intimacy with the Third Doctor, her Doctor. Even though it was played by Tim, who was still doing a brilliant job of it, I just believed it was Katie, Joe Grant, and the Doctor meeting again, and it was just it was wonderful. I think the emotion of that story was really, really what kind of carried it for me, and I think it's one of the very best on that particular box set. Really, really good. So I would highly recommend that.
Yes, that was very good. Yeah, I definitely recommend that one as well. Yeah. So, what's your experience with the Fourth Doctor adventures? Because let's be honest,
it's interesting you ask me that, Mr. Geoff. I have got.
There's
hold
tons.
On. I do. Yeah, I've got.
So, whilst Paul is looking for something, I'll say there was a lot of Fourth Doctor stories, all starring Tom Baker, and Tom has done an awful lot of recording for Big Finish, and we should be getting stories from him long after he has sadly left us, which is quite nice in a way, to know that there's a whole bank of them backed up ready to entertain us in years to come. So
that
what
sounded
were you
very bleak.
Well, yes, I know, but
you killed him off already. What's wrong with you?
Well, every time
person.
Tom does an interview, he says he hasn't got long left, which is really sad to
I
hear.
reckon he'll outlast us all, to be honest.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. So, what were you just rummaging for? Did you go to find something?
I was rummaging for my Fourth Doctor Adventures Big Finish CDs, because I did start buying them. I remember back in the early 2000s when Big Finish started up, they seemed really, really keen to get Tom Baker. They'd had all the other Doctors, including Paul McGann at that point, but Tom Baker remained distant from them, and I think they tried him loads and loads of times to persuade him to get on, but he generally just fired off a verbal shotgun at them and wasn't interested. He'd already distanced himself from the character for years and years and years, and had no intention of going back until the point when he did eventually go back. And I've heard the story that it was Louise Jameson who kind of persuaded him, because she'd done a few up to that point. I think she'd done the character of Leela for the Gallifrey series.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
And she enjoyed it so much, she loved it, and she spoke to Tom and eventually got Tom to meet with, I think, is it Jason Hay Gallery or Nick Briggs, maybe, whoever it was. And finally Tom said and he's like, why didn't I do this earlier?
Yeah,
such an idiot.
He really enjoys it. Yeah,
I know, that's it.
So I thought I'll quickly recommend a few of the ones that I've really liked.
Go on then.
And then you can tell me if you've listened to any of them, and then recommend.
I've listened to 3. So
okay, all right.
Let's see if your millions match include any of my 3.
So one that was really good was Return of the Cybermen, which is one of the Lost Stories series. So that's based on...
I've listened to 4, actually, tell a lie. 5
okay.
even, because I've done a couple of the Philip Hinchcliffe Lost Stories. You just reminded me of that.
So this is based on a script that was written but never filmed, I think, and it's another one with Sadie Miller actually playing Sarah Jane Smith. So that was a good one. Some Cybermen on a spaceship. From what I remember.
You can't go wrong.
And then there was one called The Haunting of Malkin Place, which I think I might have mentioned on the podcast before. So that was Tom with Lala Ward,
Right.
And they find out something about a medium, seances and stuff, and the doctor sort of has to go and investigate, and you start to think that actually maybe this one time it's real, and yes, it was quite scary actually. So that was a good one.
Interesting.
There was another one with Lala called The Silent Scream, which was a sort of old Hollywood set adventure, sort of in the time when films were moving into sound and colour and stuff.
Wow. Okay.
And the old silent stars were kind of becoming irrelevant,
phased out.
And things like that. So there's lots of others that I've listened to as well. The Labyrinth of Buda Castle, The Cloisters of Terror. There's a strong kind of horror and spooky feel to the Fourth Doctor stuff here. The English Way of Death, The Romance of Crime, Zygon Hunt. That was a good one. That was with Leela. And I think they're in the Scottish Highlands, maybe, hunting for Zygons.
Right, yeah.
That was good. Then there was one called The Crooked Man, also with Louise Jameson, and that's about a sort of entity that lives in books and is sort of stalking and terrorising people, particularly children. And I remember it having a really scary voice to it. Yeah. So that was a good one. There's a good one called King of Sontar, which kind of does what it says.
Is that a Sontaran one?
It is a Sontaran one, yeah.
Wow.
Phantoms of the Deep, that was sort of it was a bit like The Abyss actually, in Doctor Who. So that was quite a good one. There was another one called Planet of the Witches, which had our friend Lauren Cornelius in, and I did get the most recent, one of the most recent ones, but I haven't listened to it yet actually. So yes, that's my Fourth Doctor.
I mean, that's quite a few then. I mean, none of those are the ones that I've listened to at all. I was quite excited when they came out first time round, so I did rush out and buy them, but I only bought the first three to listen to in the car when I was on a bit of a journey. So that was Destination Nerva and something about the Iceni, and I can't quite read the other one. It's at the far end of my room. But they were quite good actually. It was good to hear Tom's voice back, voicing the Doctor, being the Fourth Doctor, and I thought they were great, and I was going to continue with them, but just didn't really, because I think I was just too much money again.
Well, that's the thing. Like I said, there's
so much
many.
You can buy.
Yeah, so many of them, and it's just time, to be able to listen
that
to
as
them,
well.
let alone
there is time.
Afford it all,
But we've said this before, but I do like them. I have also listened to the one he did with the 10th Doctor, Out of Time, is it?
Oh yes, that's good. Yeah, I was going to come to those later. The Out of Time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll come to those later on then.
The Out of Time trilogy. It's 10 and 4, 10 and 5 in a Cyberman one, and 10 and 6 in a Weeping Angels one. I haven't listened to that one yet actually, but they were good. I quite enjoyed those as well.
Yeah, I've done that. Yeah, I've done that first one with 4 and 10, and it was quite nice. I think
it's Daleks,
the Fourth Doctor was. It's what?
It's Daleks, isn't it?
I can't remember, but what I do remember is the Fourth Doctor having it on a bit of a retreat, and he's doing some art, which I kind of liked. I thought that was great because there's a definite sort of arty streak to the Fourth Doctor. Is that kind of bohemian wanderer kind of style. You think of City of Death when he's sort of running around the streets of Paris and going in and out of the Louvre and the different galleries and things like that. And it's good. It sort of works. There's constant references to Leonardo.
Yeah,
it's great. Love the Fourth Doctor. He's brilliant.
Yeah, he is really good, and it's I'm so pleased that Tom's doing them.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
What's been your Fifth Doctor experience?
Well, actually, I have listened to quite a few more of those, thankfully, because Peter Davison was in there at the beginning, wasn't he, with the others, with
Yes.
Colin and Sylvester in the Sirens of Time, and that first monthly series, they all kind of sort of alternated between the three of them, not sort of 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7. It was kind of a bit more mixed up than that. But I have a lot of those early ones, if you like, and I kind of liked how we got more of Perry and the Fifth Doctor actually, because we only really saw them together in one story, really. I mean, I know she was there in Planet of Fire, but the Doctor didn't really have much to do with her in that. There isn't really much interaction. So all the interaction that we see between the Doctor and Perry is a sort of one Doctor, one companion kind of, sort of duo, is in the Caves of Androzani. And of course, the Doctor dies in that episode, and then he's Colin Baker. So we don't really get much of a sense of how the Fifth Doctor and Perry kind of got on or not together. But of course, we've had like billions of adventures through Big Finish with the two of them. And obviously with I keep saying Eminem, Erimem, the Pharaoh Queen, which was quite she's quite an interesting character. I mean, this one thing I like about Big Finish actually. They will play. They will do a lot with the characters that we know, the companions that we know, and the actors who played them. But they show no fear in bringing in their own cast of characters.
Yes, well,
to
they do.
To the lineup, and that gives a lot of these adventures a whole different kind of feel. That it makes them more unique, I think, to what we saw, and different to what we saw on the TV, and that gives the Big Finish productions then their own vibe. It's their own. This is their creation. They're not just copying or trying to imitate or trying to kind of echo what we saw on TV, which they do that sometimes. It's great because they do it brilliantly. It's what we'd all do as fans if we were licensed to write Doctor Who. But the fact that they unashamedly bring their own characters who they can then control their story arc, because we always know with Perry, she's not going to die because she's got to finish off with the Fifth Doctor and go on through the Sixth, in the case of Androzani. So the kind of peril that she goes through, or the threat, is sort of reduced in a way. Although, saying that, there is a brilliant, I can't remember what it's called now actually, but there's a story where they become embroiled with Count Dracula, who's not Count Dracula, it's some other count, and him. And that's a brilliant one. I can't remember what it's called now, so I just thought of it. So I haven't prepared to mention that, but it's really good. Listeners will know the one I'm talking about, the Dracula one. Yeah. It's brilliant. It's really, really good. Like Vlad the Impaler, that's his name.
Right.
It's and it's about the kind of the character that Dracula was based upon.
Yes,
and he's no less scary because of that. He's a very powerful presence throughout the whole of that adventure story. And the way he interacts with the Doctor and Perry and Eminem, so I've done it again, Erimem, is brilliant. He really throws a wedge between the three of them in a way that you perhaps don't quite expect as a listener. It's a really, really intelligent, incredibly well-written story. So that is probably one of my favourites. And if I'd have thought about it, I would have got it out so I could remember. But the one I did get out is this one here, which is the Mutant Phase. It's not necessarily my favourite Fifth Doctor story, but it is. It's one of the early Big Finishes. It's actually number 15 in the catalogue, so that is way back. Oops, I've just dropped it. Way back in 2000 and just 2000. It's not even 2000 and it's 2000. It's a Dalek tale, and it kind of goes into the 22nd century, so i.e. the Dalek invasion of Earth. And what I remember about this, and the thing that is one of the things that really sold Big Finish for me, was that they modulated they didn't modulate the Dalek voices as much as they do nowadays, because in the early Hartnell era they weren't or the modulation effect wasn't as strong as it became. They sound kind of different, the old black and white Daleks, and they got that in this Big Finish episode, the Mutant Phase. It's a cracking story anyway. It's a really, really good story. It's like the Dalek plague on Earth, and it's that whole sort of Dalek invasion thing, and I just love it. To be honest, actually, I think the Fifth Doctor is one of those actually they all really come alive on Big Finish. I love them all. He's
Yeah,
really
I mean,
good. To hear more Peter Davison is just a dream.
And we've sort of mentioned this before on the podcast that we are so lucky as fans to have a history of books to read and ongoing books coming out and ever expanding audio range to listen to as well, and comics. And our favourite Doctor might leave the screen, but that doesn't mean the adventures are over at all. And I think that's brilliant. And also, like you said about Big Finish, making new companions. Obviously, quite well known is Lucy Miller with the Eighth Doctor, and I think they've done it with most of the Doctors. The Fourth Doctor had a kind of audio-only companion at one point, and in one of the 10th Doctor series, he had a companion just for audio, and obviously Sixie has as well. So yeah, I they do expand the worlds really nicely. And then was it Night of the Doctor, where Paul McGann turned up on TV on an episode for the 50th, and his companions from Big Finish were mentioned and sort of officially made canon, but people make their own decisions about whether Big Finish is canon or not, and it gets a bit messy sometimes, but I like to think that it is. But it was nice that the main show kind of acknowledged it, because it never really happens. So for Fifth Doctor stories,
yes, go on, yeah.
I've listened to Spare Parts.
Yes, of course,
which
absolute
we did
classic.
an in-depth. We did an in-depth
We did do an
review
entire
on that.
episode on that one. Yeah.
So you can go back and find that if you'd like to find out what we thought of it. There's also one called Ghost Walk. It's a spooky one.
Is that a spooky one?
Yeah, it's a spooky one, yeah. But that's got Adric and Tegan Nissa in it, and they go wandering on a ghost walk in Edinburgh.
I think you have mentioned this one before.
I might have mentioned it before, yeah. And it sort of gets a bit timey-wimey.
I'll have to look out for
what happens in it. So that was good. And then there was another one called Warzone / Conversion, and that was a Cyberman story, and it was set to sort of take place immediately, like the adventure following Adric's death on screen, and it's quite a somber story, and Peter really shines in it, and so it enabled them to kind of fill in that gap a little bit more, and build upon the kind of grief that the characters were all feeling about him just having passed and stuff like that. So that's one that I'd really highly recommend, actually.
Yeah. Can I just point out another Fifth Doctor story from Big Finish that I think is worthy of a special mention? That's Creatures of Beauty by Nick Briggs. I remember listening to this one, and again it was another one I was listening to when I was driving. This is the Fifth Doctor and Nissa, which again is another pairing that we never got enough of on screen, but there's a lot of stories with the Doctor and Nissa, and they're all fabulous, and they really allow Nissa's character to breathe and to sort of fill the story much more than she ever did on TV, and Sarah Sutton, who plays Nissa, absolutely rises to it. And in one respect, it reminds me that, do you know what, it's a crying shame we never got more from that character, and that more wasn't written for Sarah to do, because she's absolutely fantastic. She's just an absolute revelation on this story particularly. I think she really shines. It's a very Nissa-centric story. It places her front and center of it, and it's a relatively bleak story in some ways, because the Doctor is kind of forced out of the narrative, which leaves Nissa really, it's really all about her and her relationship with the people that they get embroiled with. I'm trying not to give the story away, because I think it's one of those that you have to experience and go into without knowing anything about it. But I'll just say the blurb for that story, Big Finish, doesn't do the story any justice at all. The way it's written, the way the narrative is kind of chopped up a little bit and sort of spliced, and things happen that have resonance to other bits that you may have already heard or won't have heard yet. and I love that style of storytelling. It's very Dennis Potter like. It's like the Singing Detective and Pennies from Heaven, all which I absolutely love and adore. And this story, fabulous. Creatures of Beauty, I absolutely love it to bits.
I'll have to look into that one.
Mm.
I haven't listened to an enormous.
It's not a spooky one.
So I haven't listened to a huge amount of Fifth Doctor, but I do have quite a fondness for Sixth Doctor stories.
Yes,
particularly his adventures with Mrs. Clark and Flip as well. So there's quite a few here that I've listened to. So one that I really liked was the Lovecraft Invasion, where they go to they meet H.P. Lovecraft and sort of get his creations are kind of coming to life, and they get kind of
crikey, that's worrying.
Taken into this sort of this kind of dark sort of fantasy world with it, and obviously he was a bit of a not a very nice person, and that's kind of tackled a bit in it as well. And so that was a really good one. And then there was Cry of the Vultress with that trio as well, and they were sort of they look a bit like a distant kind of Ice Warrior cousin visually when you see them on the front of the CD there, and that was a kind of intergalactic war type thing that Big Finish do quite well. So that was good. The Static that I've mentioned before, which I think you've listened to recently, Paul. That was
I did listen to it. I do have it. Yes, indeed.
Yeah,
I finished listening to it.
Another slightly spooky one. There's Order of the Daleks as well, which has those three in as well, and that's where the Daleks have. I can't remember where they are, but they've sort of infiltrated like a monastery or something, and they have a stained glass Dalek in it. And,
I think I must have seen the cover.
Yeah, it's quite a striking cover, and they sort of deceived the people in it. But that was a really good one. And then there was The Curse of Davros, which I haven't actually finished listening to. And then there was a recent set, The Sixth Doctor and Perry, which was Volume 1, although there hasn't been a Volume 2 yet, so I was hoping that might come out. But that had 4 different stories on it, which were really good. One about kind of... it's a bit of a riff on like emojis and social media and stuff like that. There's one about kind of an old film star and stuff like that. So that was really good. And then there was the 11 set, which was Colin's Doctor with Mrs. Clark, and the 11. So anyone who's listened to Big Finish might know the 11. He's a Time Lord who's evil, and his other personalities are still sort of active within his head. So he'll be talking, and then suddenly it'll make a weird noise, and then he changes his voice, and then he's horrible, and then he'll go back to and like one of them is nice, but the others are varying degrees of psychotic in there, and it's a great creation, and so that 11 box set is 3 stories that kind of involve him and kind of there's a long arc across it, and 11 has been, I'm not sure who he first appeared with. He's gone up against a number of Doctors, I think.
Did he not appear first with the 8th Doctor?
Well, possibly, yeah.
Was that when we first heard of him in the kind of timeline of releases?
Yeah, I just looked him up
Doom
quickly.
Coalition, was it?
Yeah, I think Ravenous. Just looking it up on Big Finish. So yeah, Doom Coalition. He's in some unit stories as well. He's in the ongoing arc there. So yeah, Mark Bonner plays him, and he's brilliant. And the character is now the 12 as well. He's regenerated.
You just spoiled that one for me. Cheers, mate. Well done.
Well, I don't know where it happened because I just listened to a story one day and I was like,
sorry.
oh, that was the 11. Yeah. So there's a lot of good, very good Sixth Doctor stuff, and it's quite sort of well known that Colin's Doctor was given a brilliant lease of life on audio, which is true. I mean, but like you said earlier, they all have been. But he in particular has some really great stuff going
Absolutely.
on. So, have you listened to much 6?
I have, yeah, but I think again it's only a fraction, really. I mean, I've got tons of Sixth Doctor stories on Big Finish, but none of those that you've talked about have I heard at all. I haven't listened to any of those. I mean, I'm going to go back to some of the early ones in the range, because this again I just remember being so astonished by the quality of these. And the first one I'm going to talk about is the Marianne Conspiracy, which is just. It's just brilliant. Again, I think it's a Jack Rayner story, and it's the first story where I believe we meet Evelyn Smythe, played by the wonderful Maggie Stables. And I think again, actually, this was the first time we'd had a sort of a more mature companion for the Doctor. Really, and she gives the Sixth Doctor what for, and that was brilliant because the Sixth Doctor has always been grandiose, verbose, and everything is all about him. Every single thing that he does, and that's all. That's the only real dimension of the Sixth Doctor that we'd seen on TV. But because Evelyn Smythe puts him in his place very quickly, he's not able to be as grandiose and sort of ego drowning as we saw on TV. He can't bully Evelyn like he bullied Perry. It's just not going to happen. She's not going to stand for it. She turns it around, and actually she kind of bullies him. Well, she doesn't bully him, but she very quickly puts him in his place, like sort of, it's a sort of school teacher, naughty-ish, but actually quite clever school child kind of relationship that they have. And it's a wonderful drama story. It's the first historical that we'd had for ages, pure historical. Right. No aliens, I don't remember in it at all. It's it's back in sort of the royal court, and it's kings, queens, lords, nobles, and politics and intrigue. It's a wonderful one. I honestly think it's Jacqueline Rayner's best Doctor Who story ever. Wow. She's written a load of stuff. She's written comic strips. She's written the novels. But the Marianne Conspiracy, I think, is her finest work. So, Jack, if you're listening to this, I applaud you massively for giving us the Marianne Conspiracy, without which Doctor Who would be a much sorrier place.
Check that one out.
I'll tell you another one to check out before you do. Davros, by Lance Parkin. You absolutely, because if you depends if you're a fan of Davros or not. If you don't like Davros, don't worry about it. Good man. This is the ultimate Davros story. The best Davros stories for me, or the best encounters, are those where the Doctor and Davros just I was going to say something there which probably had undertones, but I won't. the best Dalek stories for me are where the Doctor and Davros have a good old session, two-hander between us. Oh God!
I know what you mean.
Where they have a scene where it's just the Doctor and Davros, and they have a conversation, which never sounds very exciting, but they're always those, if they're done well, and mostly they are. Yeah. Those are the moments that really snap and crackle with electricity and chemistry off the TV. I'm thinking of Peter Capaldi and Julian Bleach in The Witch is Familiar, or whichever one it was. You know the one anyway.
Magician's Apprentice,
Anyway, that one. And also Tom and Michael Wisher in Genesis of the Daleks, and Colin Baker and Terry Malloy in Revelation. And they do it again in this one. Colin Baker, Terry Malloy, and it's not quite a two-hander, but there are some very long scenes, very, very long scenes, where it's just Colin and Terry as the Doctor and Davros, and you just can't stop listening to it. And in the continuity of Davros, if you like, there's a point where at the end of Destiny of the Daleks, he's imprisoned by the Mavellans, there he stays until he's busted out in the Fifth Doctor story, Resurrection of the Daleks, right? And there's a wonderful sequence where Davros is telling us about his awareness whilst he's in that state, and it's hundreds and hundreds of years that he was there, and he says, I remember all of it, every day, every hour, every minute, every second. So he experienced all of that time, wasn't able to move, to do anything other than think. And that's just, it was, I mean, I'm underselling it because I'm no Terry Malloy, but it was just chilling to hear. And and the whole conceit of this story is that Davros has become a good person. He's become a galactic benefactor, kind of like the great healer that we saw in Revelation of the Daleks, right? But of course the Doctor doesn't believe him. He's looking for something that he can trip Davros up with, that he can expose, so he can expose him to the rest of the galaxy for the fraud and the genocidal maniac that he is. But Davros doesn't give him the chance to do it. You know, he's in that play of wits, and we dive into Davros's history as a boy, and not so much as a boy, but as a scientist working for the Khalid race, looking for ways to extend, you know, their life, and the genesis of the Daleks is kind of referenced in there, and it's the best out of there were three special stories that Big Finish did. Davros was one of them, Omega was another, and Master was another one. Omega I thought was also very good. The Master I didn't like as much, but they were all character pieces on those three key villains, if you like, you know, three big Doctor Who villains. And I think, I'm sure many will agree with me, that Davros was absolutely 100% above all the others. It's one of the best Big Finish stories, bar none. It's certainly in the top 5, and I highly recommend it to any listeners out there who haven't yet heard it. I'm betting it's pretty cheap now because it's quite an old one. It's fabulous, really, really well worth a listen.
Yeah, a lot of the older ones are quite a bit cheaper now, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. Just £1.
Yeah,
I had to pay £100 for them each one. Inflation. That's what that was.
Disgraceful.
Disgraceful.
Yeah, I might have to try and check that one out actually as well. My list is growing.
Oh yeah, mine's
to
a
check
huge
out.
list. Yeah.
Well, for the next Doctor, number 7, I haven't got much to add to your listing. I've really listened to very little actually.
Oh,
so
mate, you've got to sort that out very quickly.
my 7th Doctor. My lone recommendation is Damaged Goods, which is an adaptation
of the new adventure story.
Yeah, Russell T Davies' new adventure story. So that's quite it's quite an adult one, isn't it? It's lots of sort of drug kind of stuff in it, and
I think. Well, yeah, it is. I also think the use of the term adult in this instance is quite a wide umbrella in some ways. You know, it's adult, so we've got to have sex and drugs in it. So then it's adult. You know, it's more like adolescent, really. But sorry, that's just me being an elitist knobhead, which I can be quite often.
Yes, I see what you mean. It's a bit like I just sort of, for an example, Deadpool. You know, when because that was an 18 or whatever, so they just throw loads of swearing in it, and you know,
but then it's the critics who call it adult, where it's not really. It's actually, you know, childish humour, but brilliantly done. You know, it's toilet humour, which is always the best for me. Anyway.
Yeah, so that's really my only 7th Doctor
that it?
I've listened to. Yeah.
Oh mate, so, you're missing out on loads. I mean, do you know what, actually? I mean, that's a great thing about the 7th Doctor, the fact that there are so many variations on the 7th Doctor. We probably get more from him than I think we do any other Doctor because of those new adventures stories, which is a whole new kind of continuity in and of itself. And I do remember, I think the first of those was Shadow of the Scourge, and we had Lisa Bauman playing Bernice Summerfield, right? And she got the character straight off. She was brilliant. Suddenly, this person who we'd only read of in stories, in novels, she lived and breathed on audio, and it was fabulous to hear really her good. And Sophie Aldred, you know, Ace and Benny sort of playing off against each other whilst the Doctor went off and sort of did his thing, and it's great. I love those. We had a whole bunch of stories with Tin Ed from Brookside. I forget his name now.
I thought that
what's
was
his name?
A rogue Cyberman.
Tin Ed. All right, Tin Ed. Go on, do me windows, will you, mate? I'm not doing any bloody windows. Do them yourself, would you? You probably don't remember that, do you?
I don't know. I'm afraid
don't worry about it. Okay, so
Yeah.
you either know or you don't, and if you don't,
know,
you don't.
Tweet us.
Fires of Vulcan, right? There's one. This is another early one, right? Number 12 in the collection. This was the first one that, again, brought in Bonnie Langford as Mel. We had her again, and I thought, you know, I've had enough of Mel, frankly. Mel was not a character that I was ever a fan of in the TV series. I mean, I love Bonnie Langford to bits. I think she's brilliant. I never felt she was right for Doctor Who. Until her last few stories, perhaps Paradise Towers, she was brilliant. Dragonfire, I thought she was awesome, but mostly, and that's not, you know, it's it's no reflection on Bonnie.
No, but it's
She
what
was
she's
quite
given
inexperienced in TV,
yeah.
I think. She'd done all sorts of other stuff, but this was quite a new thing for her. And it just, I don't know. She was never. There was no character really. There was a character sketch, an outline on the back of something that Pip and Jane Baker had written, but nothing more than that really. She's a computer programmer from Peace Pottage. I think that's about it. That's not a character. Yeah. That's not even there's no history there. There's nothing but Fires of Vulcan. Suddenly Bonnie was given material that she could really get hold of and do something with, and it's fantastic. And it's a wonderful, wonderful story as well. It's basically the it probably goes in the face of the fires of Pompeii, because it kind of happens of those times. Basically, they're digging up some ruins in Pompeii, and they find the TARDIS, and it's been buried there for 2,000 years. So how did it come to be buried in Pompeii?
Cool.
Well, the fires of Vulcan does explain it. There you go.
Right. Oh, that's good.
So that's one. Yeah, and I'll try to think who Tinhead is, because he does actually have an actor name as well as Tinhead, and I can't remember what his name is.
Well, whilst you...
But he was good anyway.
I'm going to move on to the Eighth Doctor.
Oh, yeah. Crikey. We could do a whole episode just on the Eighth Doctor.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, because Paul obviously didn't have much on the telly, but he's been given so much on audio.
So much.
And it sort of seems to have gone from... kind of, a monthly release, which might have been, a sort of 4-part story or something, to slightly bigger, like I remember double disc stories, I think, and then to these box sets. And I had a time, it was a while ago now, where I was listening to quite a bit of them. And then it just started to kind of grow, and I couldn't afford the money or time to buy all of these things, and I know I missed out on some good stuff,
Same.
But two that I particularly liked were The Witch from the Well and The Silver Turk, which are stories where he bizarrely travels with Mary Shelley for a little while, and The Silver Turk.
I still haven't listened to those. I really, really want to listen to those.
Yeah, they're really good, and The Silver Turk is maybe they end up in London or something, and a guy has got this what do they used to call them, like an automaton type thing, one of those old like clockwork things that people would make in the sort of turn of the century, and it would write, or it would do things on command, and this guy's got this Silver Turk, he calls, and it turns out to be a kind of scrappy Cyberman that's somehow come into his possession, and then The Witch from the Well, I can't really remember what happened in that, but it was a good one, and then I listened to Dark Eyes as well, which has a version of the Master in as well, and then and Dark Eyes 2, and then I think there was 3, and then it went into 4, and then it was Doom Coalition with the 11, like you said, and then Doom Coalition up to 4. And then it was Doctor Who Time War with him, and then Ravenous, and all of which sounded really cool, but again, just I can't do it.
I ain't got the time.
And I tried Stranded, which was a set that came out maybe last year or the year before, and the Doctor and his companions at the time get stuck in London, and the TARDIS essentially shuts down. It just becomes a when you see the TARDIS prop and they open the door and there's literally nothing inside it, it kind of became like that. And the Doctor has to kind of live in a flat with these other people and kind of get a normal job and stuff. And it was quite good. And the curator is in it, Tom Baker's older, possibly Doctor character.
Okay.
And it was good, but again, I don't know how many they've done on it now. Let me just have a quick look on the website. I can't see it now. Stranded 4.
Oh my God!
And now there's a new 8th Doctor Adventures. What Lies Inside? 8th Doctor Adventures Connections. I think that's 2 sets that go to go. I've just seen there's up to 6 Time War stories now. So Paul McGann's Doctor is brilliant, but it's just way too many. And I think it's silly really. But if they were singular releases.
You'd find it easier to keep up with.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, and it's just.
Well, I used to. I used to subscribe back in the day, and I'd subscribe to 6 episodes at a time. So pay me £100 or whatever, and get get the CDs as and when they're released.
Yeah.
And all the extras, the bonuses that kind of come with it. That was all right. It was manageable. I could do that. But yeah, when they started releasing all kinds of other box sets, I tried to keep up with them as well. I did the first series of the Gallifrey box sets.
Yeah.
I did what was this? There was another one called Excelsis or something, which
something like that.
Yeah, I think that was still part of the monthly range in a way. And there was the other Unbound Doctors.
Yeah.
I did those, but they became more and more frequent. And I just thought, I can't keep up the monthly range. I can't keep up and the box sets. And eventually the whole thing just kind of, my following kind of fragmented. So I did make a decision that, actually what I'm going to do, because I really loved the 8th Doctor stories. And for me, that was a continuation of the actual TV series. So I stuck with those for the monthly releases. And I focused on the Lucy Miller stories as and when they were released. Now, they were released, I believe, when the TV series came back in 2005, and they changed the format to match the kind of pace and the storytelling style and length of episodes that Russell T Davies was writing for the 9th Doctor at the time. So they were shorter episodes, between sort of 45 and 60 minutes, which generally meant there was only one CD, so they were easier to listen to, I felt, and so they took up a lot less time, for one thing, a little bit cheaper as well, so that kind of helped. So I found those quite good to get into. I almost lost track of them over the years, but so I think there was 3 series of those, or maybe it was 4 actually, but either way, it's the one complete range, if you like, that I did manage to stick with.
Right.
But the last one, I literally only listened to it like last year.
Right.
So it's taken me a long time to get through them. I started them when they were actually out, and then I lost them for years. Went back and finally caught up and finished it. It takes that long for me these days. I've got so much other stuff going on. I can't physically dedicate that much of my life just to listen to Big Finish audios as much as I would love to, which sounds really sad. I mean, I love the fact there is such a wealth of content, but I think there is a bit of a downside in that, certain of us are going to lose our way and feel disappointed that we can't keep up with the content, and we're going to miss out on great stuff. And it's going to make talking about stories among friends rather difficult as well. Like, you've listened to loads, I've listened to loads, but there are very few stories that the both of us have actually listened to in the scheme of things, which does make it very difficult. But I will champion the Lucy Miller stories, because I absolutely really, really love them a lot. I mean, Sheridan Smith, who played Lucy Bleeding Miller, is fantastic throughout from beginning to end, and my goodness, what an ending she has. She is just heroic throughout the whole thing. Starts as a bit of a chav, she's a bit of a chav throughout, but she becomes her own person very, very quickly, and she grows and develops throughout, and she kind of wobbles a little bit, and as the adventures sort of go through, but and the range of adventures as well. We get some we get some lovely new villains. We get the return. We get some good classics as well. We get the return of the giant spiders. We get Cybermen in there. There's a return. There's the Crinoid as well from the Seeds of Doom.
Right.
So those guys are back in, and we get Morbius, I think, who finishes off yes, it is 4 series. So Morbius finishes off series 3. So we get a 2-parter with the Planet Khan, the Sisterhood of Khan, and the Revenge of Morbius, I think it's called, at the climax of the finale of series 3. And when series 4 picks up, the friendship that they had isn't quite the same. We got Zygons in there as well. We got a really, really good story, The Zygon Who Fell to Earth, by Paul Mars. He'd done the Terror or the Horror of Glam Rock. I forget which one it is.
Yes, that was
one of
I
those
wanted to listen
previously,
to, yeah.
which is brilliant. I love Paul Mars's writing. Well, I think some of his stories have gone in directions that I haven't enjoyed as much, but that's no reflection on him at all. It's just he's so unique in the pantheon of Doctor Who writers that when you're listening to one of his stories. I believe he's the guy who created Iris Wildtime, who was played by Katie Manning in the Big Finish audios brilliantly. Katie brought that character to life and made her bigger and bolder even than she was on the page. And I think Paul Mars, when he heard that, sort of took that and thought, all right, yeah, I can really write to this, and then gave her even more stuff that she could really, really run with. So the Iris Wildtime stories, again, they're a thing in of themselves. So yeah, so there you go. My Eighth Doctor out of all the many, and I love Storm Warning, I love the Swords of Ryan, the Charlie Pollard stories, all of those things. I really, really like those, but I'm going to champion the Lucy Miller range and stick my flag into those forever.
Those stories.
See, if I'd have scripted that, it would have come out a lot better.
yeah. So, moving on to the Ninth Doctor, it was so wonderful when Chris Eccleston came back to the role and did it here for audio. So I listened to the first 3 of his sets, and they were really good. I mean, I'm not sure.
So these are box sets again, are they?
Yeah. So they've got a sort of set name, and each like Answer All Calls or something was one of them, stuff like this. Yeah. But each story within is kind of its own thing. There's no arc to them or anything. And they were really good. I mean, I think the first set I thought was stronger overall than the second one, and then I liked the third one a lot. But again, just I haven't been able to keep up with it, and it's brilliant that he's still doing them, and I will kind of get back onto them. But yeah, that's just another that kind of expands all the time. And also, I'd like to recommend the 10th Doctor series as well. Again, it was great when Tennant came back. And there was a number of 3 10th Doctor Adventures series that they did. The first one was with Donna, second one was with Rose, and then the third one was with Donna as well. And to be honest, they're all really good. The set with Rose has got a story called Infamy of the Zaros, which is very RTD and kind of, it's quite clever and sort of meta in a way, and when the reveal is played out, I thought, that's really clever. And then the third set has got a couple of cracking stories with Donna and Bernard Cribbins is in one of them as well.
Wilf.
And also that's the set when I think that's the set when Lauren Cornelius plays a character as well.
Oh, okay.
And then they also did the Dalek Universe series, which I think I mentioned.
I wouldn't mind listening to that, actually. That
it's good. It's 3 sets, but it's also really good when it all starts to come together in the third set. You think, okay, that's really good.
A lot of people have recommended that one, I think.
Yeah, it is very good.
So there's no smoke without fire, as far as I'm concerned. There's got to be something in there.
And then they did a 10th Doctor and River Song set, which was okay. I wasn't kind of hugely taken by it. I think it kind of depends on your view on River, I think, to an extent. But generally, I think all of the Tennant ones are really good and worth listening to. And I'd also like to recommend the Unit series with Osgood and Kate Stewart. That's on its kind of new
okay.
It stopped for a while and then started up again, and in fact I've listened to all of those that have come out. I always make time somehow for those. I'm just going to try to find them on the website here, because let's have a look, hang on a sec. So going back to the beginning, so the first set was Extinction, which had Autons in it, and then the next one was Shutdown, which had like ninja cyborg things, and then there was Silenced, which involved the Silence, and kind of made them good again after they were a bit lame at the end of their TV appearance, and then there was Assembled, which had Joe Grant in, and then Encounters, which was a sort of 4 separate stories that kind of all slightly connected rather than one big arc, and that was with Daleks and Sontarans in. And then Cyber Reality had the Master in the Jacoby version. Revisitations had the Wern back in. Is that
the
how you say
Wern.
it? The Wern.
The Wern. The villain.
And then the recent series, which is now under the name of Unit Nemesis, is involving the 11 and the Volprene, which are
okay.
unit.
11's back to stir up trouble.
Yeah, so that's just had its third set out, and the fourth one is out next April. So yeah, I highly recommend those as well. Would you like me to tell you some recommendations from our Twitter fans?
Go on, let's go for it, because to be honest, my experience of the 9th, 10th and any other modern Doctor stories is very minimal.
I haven't mentioned 11 or 12 because they don't do it.
No, it's Jacob Dudman again, isn't it?
And stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Bender Bending Rodriguez, who is at Turanga Bender, he says Blood Tide is fantastic. The whole cast pulls their weight, and it's a treat to see 6 go up against Silurians.
Yeah, I remember that one. That's brilliant. I've listened to that one, and that's a cracker. That you get a real sense of it being out in the ocean and violent stormy seas and everything. I'm going to eat my Christmas chocolates while you
do that, and I'll start
read those out. There you go.
And Gail writes, who's at Mealy Garage, says too many to mention, so non-Who series like Jaeger and Lightfoot, Dorian Grey, Torture with Marvelous Wild Time.
Love those.
So Marigold, who's at Galliarda Fever, says I've never listened to any and I have no idea where to start, so looking forward to getting some insight. So hopefully, Marigold, you pick up a few. Cheryl, who's at Gallifrey Angel, likes Davros, the One Doctor.
Yes.
Order of the
One
Daleks,
Doctor, yeah.
And is a particularly a fan of Evelyn by Maggie Stables.
Brilliant. Evelyn Smythe.
3 Points and a Prayer, who is at 3 Points and a Pray, says their fave story is the Apocalypse element featuring 60 and Evelyn. A lot of love for Evelyn here. Loud, bombastic and exciting, and that's just the production values.
This one is where we also saw Lala Ward come back into things as president of Gallifrey, which was astonishing. This is really Daleks invading Gallifrey, etc., etc. Brilliant. Loved it. Really good. Really good story.
Of Brad, who's Matthew, says every single War Master story is top tier.
I've listened to one or two of those, and they are very, very good. So I would love to listen to more of them, but whether I have the time again or not.
Yeah. Yes, I've heard that they're very good. Tony Filer at Filer Writes says fave stories everything from Spare Parts to Mask of Tragedy to the Auntie Matter to Mask of the Vord to the Oliver Harper trilogy to the whole Survivors, Jago and Lightfoot and Paternoster Gang series. Fave BF Companion, and then he's put a link to something I think he's written about Maggie Stables.
There you go.
Quite a lot of love for Evelyn Smythe here.
She was fantastic though.
Robin, who's at Galaxy's Clara, says I'm a huge fan of the new Unit series. Of course, it has Osgood in it, who's my all-time favourite.
Always a plus.
Giltzer, who's at Dennis Gill 10, says Dalek Universe. And Jade, who's at Hoovian Jade, says Solitaire and Master. So there's a couple of good recommendations from people there.
Yeah.
So it's been great to talk Big Finish tonight. I think you said earlier, we could probably do a whole episode about the Eighth Doctor, and we could talk for hours about all of this.
We've literally only scratched the surface, and we've been talking for nearly 2 hours.
It's a pathetic scratch at that, because there's so much. But I think next year, there's no show on air, so maybe we could dive into Big Finish a little bit more. I particularly want to get more into the Sixth Doctor stories with Mrs. Constance Clark. I've listened to quite a few of them, but there's
I've listened to her first one, Mrs. Constance Crisscross, which I thought was fabulous, and I've listened to Static, but there's a whole bunch of them in between, isn't there? Which I haven't listened to, because suddenly there's this other person called Flip. And I haven't heard any of her stories apart from this one.
No, I haven't heard Flip's
So her coming into Static just seemed really, really weird when I haven't had any build up to it. But
but she's been with them for a while. So we'll chat off air and make up some plans for some more Big Finish, and we'll do some tweets.
Indeed, we shall.
Thoughts and get that moving. So as always, thank you very much for listening, and we will catch you soon.
See you next time, listeners. Take care. Bye for now.